The Legend of Zelda is an iconic video game series, and in my line of work, people have done it to death. There are countless examples of people making Master Swords, Bows of Light, Hylian Shields, and even an entire map of Hyrule. Very similar to my Johto map, which you should check out, by the way. But I wanted to do something that I have not ever seen done. I wanted to make a working version of the Spirit Train from Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. This is absolutely not a fan favorite game. It lands near the bottom of most Zelda rankings, but if nothing else, is certainly iconic. I mean, come on, Link and Zelda on a train? That's pretty cool. This game has a special place in my heart because I grew up playing DS games, and I also have some really great memories associated with it in high school. It has its flaws, but I will defend it to death, and I wanted to make something from it. This is actually a project I began a long time ago, back when I had my first 3D printer, an Ender 5, which is a small step up from an Ender 3, and if you know those printers well, I'm sorry. But I made this first version here and a little circuit to run it on, and this project actually ended when one of my roommates accidentally cooked the train tracks in the oven. It's a long story. The first version had some problems, and a few years later I made a second version, and then a third. But the motor eventually burned out because I didn't really know how to wire electronics, so cut to now. I have a multicolored printer, more space to work with, and more skills with electronics, so I decided it was time to revive the project. The first step here is picking my electronics. Need a couple things. Let's see what I already have here. Check my random boards, drawer, screen, no. Don't know what that is, no. That's what I want, another battery charger. Oh, motor controller. And let's see. And battery. Alright. Once this was done, I could go into SolidWorks, take my old models, resize and edit based on the new needs. But before I get into the resizing, I want to take you through my modeling process. Normally when you're modeling something from a video game, there are conflicting pieces of information. There are in-game models, which I typically try to stick to. There are official art pieces that can help fill in the details. And since this is a DS game, the models are pretty simplified, so those arts help a lot. Circles end up as hexagons some of the time, and there's a lot of details that should be solid that end up flat just because of textures. And so I gathered up all the sources I could and used those to create my model in SolidWorks. There are 4 versions of a lot of these models, and I'll take you through the important features. First, version 1 was the initial version. The only electronics in the engine were the speed controller, a radio receiver, and a motor. The speed controller sat on the platform that Link stands on, which is sort of ugly, but I just wanted the train to be as small as possible at this point. And the battery was meant to go in the Stalwart car because there wasn't room in the engine. This project never made it that far, but it would have also been ugly. The other major issue was that the connectors between cars were rigid, which just did not work. There were actually 2 iterations of version 1. They were both hand-painted, and I didn't really have every color available to me, and I didn't want to buy more paint. So the first version was kind of rough. The second one was a little more accurate, but still not quite right. Either way, I still have one of them with the electronics stripped, and it's a nice little toy. Version 2 was the exact same as version 1, except I changed the connector to be flexible. This allows the trains to handle turns and stay connected to each other a little bit better. The following cars did not have a turning mechanism, and I had trouble getting the platforms to take the turns well. I didn't get as far as printing out the Stalwart, Canon, or Cargo Car for this version of the train. Next, there was the large version. All the electronics, including the motor, speed controller, radio receiver, and battery, were housed entirely in the engine. Though there was a lot of wasted space inside, it all fit. There was no switch here, and the battery had no way of being charged other than removing it from the train and charging it via a little USB thing and plugging it back in. This was also kind of ugly since it left an open slot where you could see the battery to remove it and put it back in. This version also had hand-painted models, and the colors turned out way better than either of the previous versions. I got around to printing but not painting the Stalwart Canon Cargo Car. The Canon Car I had trouble taking turns, and I didn't really get to fix it before I moved out of my apartment, and this project got put on pause once again. Version 3 also gave the track a little revamp. In the first clip I showed you of version 1, you can see that the track is just kind of basic, but I wanted to make it game accurate. I went into my track file and added the little triangle rail ties that are part of the in-game track. Making the curves required a little bit of extra work, and some of them look better than others based on the turn radius, but I'm pretty happy with how they all look. So now you're caught up to the current day. The latest version fixes all the problems I had with previous versions. So I modeled all my electronics in SolidWorks, as I mentioned, so I could accurately test the size of them inside the train to make sure they would fit. Once again, I wanted to include everything in the engine. This allowed me to resize the train as small as I could possibly get it. This is my electronics diagram. The battery is connected directly to a USB-C charging board, which is also connected to a special mystery item over here that I'll tell you about later. The output of the power board is connected then to a radio receiver, which then feeds into the speed controller and finally to the motor. I added an extra cutout for the battery because it wouldn't quite fit otherwise, and made a cutout on the dial for the speed controller. None of the electronics here have mounting holes, including the motor, so I had to get creative about how I could actually hold everything in place. So I decided to make a little two-piece tower that would hold it all together. I also split the model into separate pieces for ease of printing, and to make sure I could print in full color, since I can only print 4 colors at once, kind of. More on that later. After building everything in SolidWorks, I had to send it to my slicer to print. When you build a 3D model in a modeling software, you have to prepare it to print by converting a 3D object into something called G-code. G-code is what tells the head of the printer where to move and how to lay the plastic. The slicer is the software that creates the G-code. It's also the software that you use to color your model for multicolor printing. All of these parts have multiple colors, so I divided them up so I could fit that limitation of just 4 colors. The very first thing I printed was the base for the Stalwart and the Cargo Car. I had designed and tested some more complex turning mechanisms, but ended up ditching them because it turns out you don't need them. Trains have a very unique steering mechanism. In a car, you turn your steering wheel, which turns the front wheels of the car to turn the car. This is because your wheels are flat on the road, so there isn't a force that pushes them to one side or the other. If you drive a car on a sloped surface, you can actually get the car to turn without turning the steering wheel, which is kind of where I'm going with this. What if instead of sloping the surface, you slope the wheel? Now imagine for a second you have a car where the wheels on the left side are bigger than the wheels on the right side. If you leave the steering wheel straight ahead, the car will turn to the right because of the difference in size of the wheels. This is how train steering works. The wheels are sloped so when a train reaches a turn, the entire thing shifts to one side. This means that, to a much smaller degree, the wheels on one side are larger than the wheels on the other side, causing the train to naturally follow the curve without even having to turn an axle. Real train bogies do actually allow some turn, but this is not something that's done naturally because of the length of the cars. For my case, nothing needs to rotate as long as the wheels are sloped enough. To allow these cars to move smoothly on the track, I'm using 3mm axles held in place by 3mm bearings. I had to actually make something to test the cars out on, so I printed out some track. You can see that I'm printing a lot of curves here, and a lot of them are different radii, so that I could test the sharpest turns this train can take. Not really going for realism here, because it's a cartoon train from a video game, so I wanted it to be able to take some pretty sharp turns. Now you can see that even without a complex steering mechanism to keep the cars on the track, they take the turns with ease due to the design of the wheels. And after printing the bases, it was time to print the tops. This is where I want to take a quick pause to explain what I meant about only kind of having a 4-color limitation. If you look at the Stalwart car, it obviously has more than 4 colors. You can get more granular, but it can basically be done with 6. Royal blue, light blue, gold, brown, tan, and red. So, how do you print these in one print? Because a 3D printer prints in layers, the most accurate way to describe the limitation is that you can only print 4 colors per layer. So if at a certain height you no longer need certain colors, you can just change them out. So the bottom half is printed with royal blue, gold, brown, and tan. Once I got past the point of needing royal blue or gold, I just paused the print and swapped these two for light blue and red, giving me a 6-color print on a 4-color printer. After assembling the tops and bases, these cars are basically done. The only thing left to do was print connectors for them. Next was the Canon Car, and this was the one that actually gave me the most trouble in the past on turns. It only has a single wheel, so it's a bit of an odd piece of the train. Part of me thought of just excluding it for ease, but that's not what we're about here. We don't do that. We don't give up. We're about game accuracy, and so the Canon is a must. I updated the Canon model and got it printed. I had a little bit of trouble assembling it because my heat set inserts wandered a little bit when I was putting them in, so I only ended up with 2 bolts in place, but that's really all I needed. These pieces I printed to hold the Canon in place were a little too small initially, so I had to reprint those and assemble them separately. The last and most interesting piece of the whole train is the engine. But before I get to the printing and assembly, I want to tell you how I'm going to power the thing. I told you before that I'm including a battery, but I didn't want to have to take it out and charge it, nor did I want to have to go find the train, pull it off the layout, and plug it in every time I wanted it to run. Though I did include a USB-C plug for quick testing and charging. Most model trains don't actually have onboard batteries. The only electronic component they contain is a motor, which is supplied power via conductive rails that are hooked up to a voltage regulator for speed. Unfortunately, I'm not quite at the level of being able to make all that myself. I do, however, have a unique solution to my problem. It's one that you're probably familiar with and have seen more and more in today's world: a wireless charger. Every train has to pull into a station at some point, right? So why not build a station to charge the train while it's not in use? After I had this idea, I felt really stupid for not using it on my Lethal Company apparatus instead of doing whatever this is. Go watch that video too, though, to see what convoluted solution I came up with. It's neat, even if it's impractical. But back to the topic at hand. Alright, so I want the train to be able to pull into a station and just charge itself without having to plug anything in, so I bought these wireless chargers. You might be kind of familiar with these because they're in a lot of phones nowadays. Basically, you have the ring that's hooked up to power, and then the ring that's in a device, your phone, or the train in this case. So what I've done here to test this is I'm applying 9 volts to this charger right here, and I've set up just a little circuit to make sure these actually work with an LED. So when I move this close to this, it should light up the LED, look at that. So what I'm gonna have to do here is test the distance that I can actually have these away. You can kind of see the brightness of the LED changes as I move it further away and closer. And I also need to test if I can put anything between them, which would be like a thin sheet of plastic. After determining that it would work, I needed to build a piece of track to hold the charger and a station to hold the charging block that plugs into the wall. Next, I took one of my regular track pieces and turned it into a station piece. I had to measure the charging ring, check how far off the ground the engine would be, and then print it out. I, of course, took inspiration from the in-game stations for accuracy. After I got all the pieces of the station out, I threw it all together. Once I got everything together, I had to make sure the trains would actually fit over the charging block, because I had measured, but the first version I printed out didn't fit, so I had to print a second one. Didn't actually show that here. Alright, now that I have my station all assembled here, gotta wrap up the electronics. So, wireless charger's already in there pretty good. To power it, I got this little board here that plugs into the wall and supplies 5 volts. See the little LED comes on when you press the button. It's just gonna stay on, that doesn't matter. Just gonna fit that in here. But I do need to solder a little bit together here, so let's do that. Yeah, so the problem with soldering is I'm not really any good at it. Working to get better. Those joints will joint. I mean, they're fine. They'll get the job done. Now that I have all my non-powered cars and my charging station ready, it's time to get to the most complicated part, which is the engine. I went ahead and prepared my print files for the engine. I mentioned earlier that I divided everything up into different pieces so that I could meet the 4-color limit. So that's what you're seeing here. I went ahead and printed out the base so that I could have something to work off of and test once I got the electronics working. I'll show you the electronics diagram again. This is how I plan to have everything inside the engine, and how I designed the entire electronics stack. And then I got the testing. Okay, so I've managed to cobble something together here that actually kind of works. I was really trying to get this motor speed controller in there so I could adjust what the speed was manually, but I don't have enough voltage for that, so I had to remove this from the circuit. So what we have here is the battery hooked up to the charging board, hooked up to my wireless receiver board, hooked up to the motor right here. It's a little difficult to see. Let me try to raise it up without having things fall apart. Some of it's not soldered. When I press go on the remote, the motor turns one way, the middle button stops it, the back button reverses it. There we go. I couldn't get things to work for a while. The difference was that I needed to give a little bit of dedicated power to this board rather than just routing all the power through the in and out. So now that I've done that, it actually works. After many different versions of the electronics housing, I finally decided that this piece will not be used at all and printed out my final version. So I'm going to get this assembled and show you what it looks like. Okay, I have everything assembled in this little thing here. So then I hold the wires on the motor like so. And then I press this. Well, you can't actually see it there. Give me a second. It's spinning in there. So we're good to go. Okay, there are a couple things that need to happen here. Number one is I need to cut these little axles to the right length. I have it marked here where I'm going to cut them. I'm going to go ahead and do 4. I'll do the rest later because I don't have the rest now. Second problem is that the way these gears fit onto the axle is they have a little screw in them. When you tighten it, it tightens it to the axle. It's called the set screw. The problem is the set screw is within the teeth of the gear. So when the gears mesh, they don't actually properly go together if the set screw is too far unscrewed. Unfortunately, these don't screw in far enough. So I need to shorten the set screw or just make a divot in this thing. And I think I'm gonna go with shortening the set screw, so not sure how that's gonna go. We'll see. If I lose it, I am not so good. It's real hot when you get done. Also got to sand down the edge of that because it's a little sharp right now. Alright, now we have our almost evenly sized axles. You know, they're pretty close. Good enough. Doesn't gotta be exact. Alright, let's worry about those set screws and see what we can do. Done with the vise. So it's time for a new tool. A little bench grinder. Let's see what we can do here. Because these things are tiny. That's it at the end of the thing there. I don't know if it's focusing, but that's what it is. So I got to shorten this thing somehow. I think I'm just going to try to hold it really tight with the pliers. See what we can do here. Ugh, let's see. It's shorter, not by much. Got a lot of work to do here, I think. Keep going, I guess. It's time to try this thing on the motor and see if it actually is working here. See, this is the easy one, because the motor has what's called a D shaft, which means, well, shaped like a D. That means there's a spot that's dedicated for set screws to sit on. My other shafts are perfectly round, which means I either need to shave the set screw down further, or I just need to make it into a D shaft in the part that it's going to attach to. So we'll see. This is a horrible way to do this. And yet it's working. You know what they say? If it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. All right, I got everything soldered together here. And I got my little tape joints here so the plus and minuses don't intersect, cause a little short circuit on me. Battery's plugged in, and you can see here. Here we go, forward and backward. So we are looking pretty good here. So I'm gonna go ahead, take this piece here, which is two separate printed pieces that I assembled, put some heat set inserts in it, and see how this thing goes together. All right, those are nice and flush. This thing is attached. Look at that, good to go. Let's see how the shell fits over it. Okay, we don't need the top part to test it. All right, here we go. First test, let's see if it runs. Oh shoot, it's got no grip on the track, but it's going. Oh, it can't turn. What's going on here? Are my wheels too far apart back here? I don't know. Oh shoot, look at it go. Oh, it's off the tracks. Okay. Well, if it can't take the widest turn, it's 100% not gonna take the tight turn. Okay, I stand corrected. It took the tight turn. Sheesh. Oh, come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Last little bit. Hey, look at that. Okay. It can go forward. It can go backward. And it can kind of turn. Good first test. Let's keep going. I ran a test on my floor just to see how it would run off the tracks. And then I actually had to put the top on and just kind of stuff everything in, being really careful not to mess up any of the wires. And look at that. Let's just see if things work still now that I jammed it all in. It does. Look at that. There we go. It is assembled. Look how awesome that looks. I'll stick on this thing once I stick the antenna through it. And there's another little piece somewhere. Right here. that just goes on to cover up that hole. So we'll have something like that. All right, once again, go for a run on our test circuit here. See how we handle these turns. All right, not bad, not great. Once we have a little more grip on the wheel, it should be a little better. You can tell we're leaning a little forward here. You can see these back wheels are actually losing contact because the front of the train's the heavier piece. So I'm gonna have to add some weight in the back, it looks like. I mean, look at that, it's actually balancing on the front wheels. Not so good. Does it do that when it's going forward too? Not as much because of the momentum, but we're gonna have to work that out. Oh, and we derailed. 18 passengers killed. All right, got it fully assembled. It is plugged into the wall, which means this thing is powered up. So when I put the train on, that bad boy's charging. Okay, got my Canon Car done, well, almost. So now, I need to actually connect everything. Oh, lost some wheels. Got my engine, cargo car, Stalwart car, and my Canon car. So, printed out these little guys right here to connect everything together. Not exactly the ideal train hitch, but gets the job done. So, gonna have to remember how I actually have this done in the CAD. And this is the one I'm gonna have to figure out exactly how I want this to be done. Because these two are fine. I'm hoping this just pressure from this keeps it under. But we'll see if I need to lock any of these in place too. All right, while I'm waiting on the Canon car to dry, let's see what our Spirit train can do. That's about what I expected. No grip. It's moving though, which actually surprises me. But no grip at all. Gonna have to fix that. All right, Canon is on. Let's see if we got any traction here. Yeah, that feels about right. Yeah, we're gonna need something. And I think I know what. All right, for engine grip, I took my two drive wheels off. And here is my solution right here. We're gonna see how this works. Just gonna wrap a rubber band around the wheel and see if that gives me enough traction to drive the whole thing. So, let's do that. All right, those probably need a bit more time to actually fully dry, but now we got our two grippy wheels, so hopefully these actually give us enough traction. After adding my rubber band wheels, which I was sure was going to fix the problem, I tested it out and this happened. It either couldn't take turns or it would just derail completely. This was obviously not the solution I thought it was going to be, which was a little upsetting. I was sure this was going to work, so I had to figure out something else. The rubber bands gave me way too much grip, but I had another idea. Another material that wouldn't give me quite as much grip as the rubber band, but still more than the other wheels I had before. Alright, sorry for the noise. The printer is running in the background. But this is my next solution for the wheels. So the filament that I've been using so far is called PLA, which is polylactic acid. And you can see that it's a little bit brittle. I mean, it's still flexible in this form, but if you bend it in half, it just snaps. This filament right here is called TPU. Don't know what that one stands for. But this one is a flexible filament. So when you print a part, it comes out a little bit flexible. Not as flexible as this filament is, but still flexible. And it's a little rubbery, so it gives you a little more grip. So I'm printing out some wheels in this, and we're gonna see if those work any better than the PLA wheels. All right, got my TPU wheels printed. You can see that they're a little more flexible. You can twist the whole thing, and compared to this one where it's, this one will just break if well, not strong enough to do that, but. All right, my initial tests have me hopeful that this is gonna work. A lot better than the rubber bands, at least. We're not derailing here. All right, first test here with everything attached with the new wheels. We had trouble pulling this before, so let's see if we got any luck here. Whoa, okay. A little slow around the turns, but it is working. I'm so happy about that. I thought the rubber bands were gonna be the solution, and they just weren't. This has me thrilled. This is it. All right, that's the money shot right there. We love it. Stop at the station, yes. Before the final reveal, there is one thing that I need to address. Everything so far has been taken straight out of the game, except for one thing. The remote I'm using to control the train. I mean, it looks like a garage door opener, not something you find in a Zelda game, so that has to change. I went into SolidWorks and built myself a model of a train controller based on the train control screen from the game. I can't copy it exactly since my train only has 3 speed settings instead of 4, but I got as close as I could. I printed it out a couple times actually, because I had to test the fit of the moving parts and how the remote actually fit into it, and then put it together. Now if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This was a super fun project to work on, and I'm really happy that I finally got around to finishing it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please subscribe if you want to see more content in the future. I have some great ideas cooking. So, now after all this, it's time for the final reveal. Thanks again for watching. I hope you like how it turned out. I know I did. Let me know what you want to see me make next in the comments. Please subscribe to see more, and I'll catch you in the next one.